all have in common. So Kamala raised working class, that's great, but this economy is somehow good for middle-class Americans? Joining me now is Kevin O'Leary, chairman of O'Leary Ventures. Kevin, great to see you as always. The Wall Street Journal did a great piece a couple days ago, just taking that census data that just was released about real median incomes. And the sad truth is that from 2019 to today, Americans have gotten poorer, especially hard hit, the middle class, urban Americans, black Americans, Latino. The numbers are depressing, but she worked at McDonald's.
Yeah, the data's pretty tough, and it's factual. Earnings power is down. People are being paid less after an inflated basis, and all services and commodities that most families use are up between 21 and 25%. So that is actually probably the most important aspect of this race is how's that going to get fixed? It's the economy. It's always the economy. You know that classic line, it's the economy, stupid? Well, it is the economy. And I think more focus should be put on that, particularly on policy. This is an extraordinary election cycle, and I'd say as an investor, I have to deal with who's ever in the White House on November 6th. And I have to try and figure out what the policies are of both candidates. I have no information from Harris yet, and I can't believe in an election cycle, this will be the first time in modern history, that a potential presidential candidate has not talked to the press. I don't know why she's not talking to you. I don't know why she's not talking to every outlet, because we're not getting any information. I have no information.
And meanwhile, J.D. Vance was on CNBC for a long time this morning, and he took questions on everything from, the debate about tariffs to the economy to, he hit on every issue. He's very available, and we might not agree with everything he's saying, but at least he's answering questions. And Kevin, during that debate, by the way, that everyone's still talking about, Kamala Harris cited Goldman Sachs, claiming that her plan would strengthen the economy. But the Goldman Sachs CEO was asked about this today. Watch.
A lot more has been made of this than should be. What it showed is the difference between the sets of policies that they put forward was about 0.2%. Okay, so economy grows. Okay, if you took these particular sets of policies they looked at, and by the way, we have no idea whether these policies, these things that are talked about will ultimately be implemented. This blew up into something that's bigger than what it was intended to be.
Well, it was an individual analyst. It wasn't a Goldman Sachs proclamation. I guess people do that in these types of settings, but that wasn't all that convincing as an endorsement of a policy that you said you can't really even dissect.
I'm worried about something else far more important, and I think everybody in this election, regardless of who you want to vote for, should think about this. What is the number one export of America? Is it a good or a service? Is it technology, oil and gas? No, none of those. The number one export of America is the American dream. It has been that way for 200 years. There's a reason half the globe's wealth is invested here, and there's a reason people risk their lives to get into the United States. It's the American dream. Now, let's just talk about one policy I'm gravely concerned about. Taxing uncapitalized gains, which destroys capital formation. The reason people come here and why they invest here is to deploy their capital. Now, I got to know what that's about. Is that even a realistic idea? I can't believe that, because that would basically decimate the American dream. So if that's a reality, if that's a real policy, and I wish somebody would ask both candidates what their plans are on taxation, because a 28% corporate tax rate in the addition to state taxes would make America very uncompetitive in the G20, and we'd start losing companies like we did when taxes were that high. They all went to Ireland, particularly the pharma companies. I ask everybody to remember that. Policy matters. So start asking your candidates about policy. It doesn't matter in terms of kumbaya or how you feel about this or that. What matters is policy, and we don't have any. So I'm really concerned. I need those two things I need to know.
Well, I think
those
Kevin,
are very important.
Yeah, I think Trump's policies are pretty clear. It's basically the policies he did before, and he was going to cut taxes. But I would agree with you. Unrealized capital gains, taxing that, we are over if that happens. Kevin, thank you. Wonderful to see you as always. All right, the Biden administration just insulted the victims of illegal alien crime. What was said? That's next. Angle documents the brutal crimes that have been committed by illegal aliens and other special category migrants against innocent people here in the United States. But the DHS Secretary, Alejandro Mayorkas, good buddies with Kamala Harris, doesn't seem too worried.
When you hear a charge that illegal immigration and migrant crime is one of the greatest threats to the country today, you say what?
That it's false.
That it's false. Tell that to the 13-year-old who was kidnapped and then raped in Kenner, Louisiana. Police say an illegal alien admitted to it. Tell that to the family of Diana Garcia, who was murdered, allegedly by another illegal from Cuba. And just maybe our border czar should check in with the families in Aurora, Colorado, many who are being terrorized in their own apartments by vicious Venezuelan gang members. Joining us now is the co-host of Fox and Friends Weekends. I watch every weekend. Will Kane. Will, wonderful to see you. Well, I was thinking about this as I was watching the debate the other night, and the Harris campaign, they're in the spin room, and they're holding her out as the champion of women and girls and all that is right and just in the world. But why don't the victims, and we just mentioned a few of them, why don't they seem to matter to them, frankly, or to her?
Selective victimhood, selective empathy, those that serve your interest, which is to gain and maintain power. You know, I listened to that answer from Alejandro Mayorkas, Laura, and I just think it's so smug. And there was a smugness to this issue as well from Kamala Harris on the debate stage whenever there was a discussion about Springfield, Ohio. And, you know, there's such a condescension towards the common voter that I do begin to wonder, Laura, if it's going to have a backfire electorally on them. Now, to the extent that it swings an election, I don't think they fully appreciate how this issue touches the lives of so many Americans from coast to coast across this country. You did a great job of highlighting some of the specific victims of crimes from illegal immigrants. But this issue that they treat so condescendingly, so smugly, touches the lives of a lot of Americans.
And we're seeing it in small towns, in places like Springfield, where they're bringing in these special category migrants. So it's 20,000 Haitians and whatever they're doing with their free time. I mean, notwithstanding, that's a massive, massive upending of the social and economic order of a rather small community that
Absolutely.
was, fairly peaceful. But you almost get the sense, Will, that the elites resent the fact that those small town settings are peaceful and people like it the way they have it there. And it's like, no, you don't deserve to live that way. No. We're going to change your community whether you like it or not.
They don't care about that community. That community does not matter to them, just like East Palestine, Ohio, or Lahaina, Maui. Those aren't the communities they're concerned with. They're concerned with New York, Atlanta, Los Angeles, big voting blocks, big urban populations. Think about this. When I say it touches the lives of so many Americans, I just got done, Laura, I just interviewed Tony Robbins and the director of a new movie called City of Dreams. I'm sure you've had this conversation as well. Vivek Ramaswamy is an executive producer. It's about child slavery, labor slavery, and sex slavery. And it puts a story to the number that you and I and a lot of us here on Fox might talk about. 300,000 missing kids. Okay, that's 300,000 missing kids. That's tied to illegal immigration. The crime issue, if that hasn't touched you, maybe crime has, as you have laid out very well. Maybe that's touched you. If that hasn't touched you, how about your job? Has the increased labor pool affected your life? And then finally, if you live in a place like Springfield or Aurora or any other town in America, has your culture been impacted by this unfettered illegal immigration? My point is, through one of those prisms, one of those four opportunities, you're hitting a lot of Americans.
And they'll cite statistics. Oh, the crime rate among illegals is not as bad as the crime rate. I don't care if it's 5 Americans who are murdered or little girls who are raped or brutalized. I don't care if it's 5. These are things that should never have happened in our country. So they can take their statistics and put them where the sun doesn't shine for all I care. These are real victims. Will, we'll be watching this weekend. Thank you so much. And these illegal alien crimes are happening as far away from the border as Wisconsin.
Right here in small town Wisconsin, a member of a savage Venezuela gang was arrested for sexually assaulting a woman and attacking viciously a child. He's charged with suffocation, child abuse, sexual assault, and many other things. I will get these monster criminals out of Wisconsin. I will get them out of our country.
Joining me now, Republican Eric Hovde.